In our demonstration, we'll use Google Sheets and functions to transform your budget. We'll begin by setting up the demo. First, you'll open a template transforming your budget Google Sheet and create a copy. Then you'll add a new sheet to your Google Sheet, rename it Budget, and enter income and expense line items. And then we'll view the statistics of the transactions Google Sheet to populate our income and expense line items and format them as currency. So let's begin by opening up the template. I'm just going to right click on the hyperlink and select Open Link in New Window. Go ahead and maximize the window. And the first thing I want to do is to create a copy because I don't want to work in the original. And so in the menu system, I'm going to select File and Make a Copy. This opens up the Copy Document window, and I'm just going to click Make a Copy, accept all the defaults. And this creates a copy of the original template. I'm going to go ahead and close the original Google Sheet so I don't enter any information in there. We're going to work in our copy. Set the zoom level to 125% so we can make out our values a little bit better. And then, of course, this is the interface that we've been using in class where you have a menu system, you have a toolbar, and then you have our values arranged in columns and rows, columns A, B, and C, and rows 1, 2, and 3. And at the very bottom there, you can see the Transactions tab for the Transactions worksheet. Now, to the left of that, if we click the plus sign, we'll add a new sheet, and then click the drop up for the new sheet and select Rename. And we're going to rename it in title case as Budget. And then in the new blank spreadsheet, go ahead and click in A1 and in uppercase enter in income, and then click in A2 and we're going to enter in uppercase expense, and then click out to accept the values. And then now we want to view the transaction stats and enter them in as the income and expense. I'm going to go back to the transaction spreadsheet and find my income and expense. Column E is income. I'm going to select it. And when I do that, in the lower right-hand corner, it already summarizes the statistics for me. So there's the sum, which is $18,208.59. And I just need to either remember that or write it down. And then I'm going to go over to the budget and enter it into B1, $18,208.59. And then this time I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard. I'm going to go back to transactions. Again, select column F, which is the expense column. Look at the summary statistics and select sum. And note that the value is negative $14,591.08. And then go back and in B2, enter negative $14,591.08 and click enter. The last thing I want to do is format column B so it's currency. So I'm going to select it and select the dollar sign. And when I do that, it formats it as dollar amounts. In step 2, we'll use functions to reference cells. We'll begin by summing all the income transactions with the sum function and referencing column E in the transaction spreadsheet. And then we'll set F as a named range called expense, and then we'll reference that within the sum function. And then we'll add a new balance row and set a mathematical function equal to B1 plus B2, or income plus expense. All right, back in our spreadsheet, we'll begin by deleting our values that we entered into B1 and B2. So I'm going to go ahead and select B1 and B2, and then go to the Edit menu item and select Delete and then Values. So I'm going ahead and clear those values. So instead of manually entering them in, now we're going to reference them. So I'm going to click in B1 and go to the function button and select sum. And then it enters in a sum function, and now I need to enter in the cells that it's going to reference. So I'm going to go over to the transaction spreadsheet and click on column E. And notice that populates the sum function with the column E transactions. And then I'm going to click enter on the keyboard, and that then gives my sum in B1. There you can see the function, and then when I click out of the cell, you can see the total. Now go ahead and don't autofill. And now we're going to use a named reference for our expense to show a different way to reference cells. So I'm going to go back to transactions, select column F, the expense column, and then in our menu, I'm going to go to data and named ranges. And in the named ranges panel, I'm going to enter in uppercase expense. And that represents all the values in column F of the transaction spreadsheet. And then now I can reference that in a function. So I'm going to go back to the budget spreadsheet and enter in a function. And this time I'm going to start it by entering in an equal. That signifies this is a function, and type sum, open parentheses. And then now you can see as I enter in EX, I can see from the context sensitive menu my named range. So I'm going to go ahead and select it and click enter. And there you can see the named ranged referenced sum for the expense column. Now I'm going to enter in a new balance in A3 line item, and then we're going to use a mathematical function with cell references to calculate our balance. So I need to begin by clicking in B3 and entering in an equal sign, and then I'm just going to click on B1, enter in a plus sign, and click on B2, and then click enter. And again, we don't want to autofill, so click X, and there you can see the sum of our values, or the balance. In step 3, we're going to use functions to transform our text. We'll begin by inserting a new date value column to the right of the date text, and we'll format that as date. Then we'll convert the date text values to date values using the date value function and copy it down. Then we'll insert a new account bank and account type columns at the far right of our spreadsheet, and then parse out the institution values using the split function into our new account bank and account type columns. Back in our spreadsheet, I'm going to go ahead and activate the transactions sheet. I'm going to go ahead and close the named range pane over on the far right there. And then now we're ready to start inserting our new date value column and values. And if you look, you can see in column A, they're not standardized. So we're going to click on that drop down and select insert one column to the right. And we're going to call this new column all uppercase date value. And then in B2, we're going to enter in our date function. So it starts with an equal sign for the function, and then I'm going to start typing date, and from the context sensitive menu, I'm going to select date value. And if I hit that little question mark, it opens up the context sensitive help, which I just need my reference cell. In this case, it's going to be A2, and click enter. And I don't want to autofill. So the number is 43145. That doesn't mean anything to me. That's a computer date. But I can convert it to a date I can understand by selecting column B, going to number format, and selecting date. And you'll see that it's reformatted the date to be month, day, year. And we want to replicate that across all of our data. And we can do that by selecting that little blue circle and copying it down. And as we do that, it changes the reference for the function, A3, A4, A5, and so on. But at the same time, it's standardizing the date across all our data. And if I double click that little circle, instead of dragging it down, it goes ahead and replicates all the way down for all the cells. So if I scroll all the way down to row 103, you can see that it standardized the dates for our entire transaction sheet. Now I'm going to scroll all the way over to the right, and we want to parse out the institution, or column J. And so we're going to create two new columns. In column K, uppercase, we're going to call it account bank, and in column L, uppercase again, we're going to call it account type. I'm going to go ahead and select both columns and resize them so they're standard width. So select them both and then resize them. And then now I'm going to select K2, and we're going to enter in our function to parse, which in Google Sheets is split. So I'm going to enter in equals and SPLIT and select split. And then I'm going to use the context sensitive help to complete my function. So I'm going to select my reference cell for the text and then enter in a comma, and I need my delimiter. In this case, it's a hyphen. So open quotes, hyphen, close quotes, and comma, and then some optional parameters to split by each. Yes, split by each hyphen. We're going to say true. And then comma, do we want to remove empty text? Those are the leading and following blanks, and we do. So we're going to type in true again. And then just click enter, and you can see that it parses out or splits the chase checking value into chase and checking. And of course, to copy it down, we just need to select the formula, double click, and it copies it all the way down and parses out all of our data for our entire spreadsheet.